Hi everybody, this is Kathlyn Hinesley with Exploring Dimensions for All. Today I'm going to be reading Chapter 3 of my book, Welcome to Infinity, Exploring Ancient and Modern Techniques for Collaborating with Otherworldly Beings. This chapter and some of the other chapters in my book have quite a lot of footnotes. I think I put in too many, really. You definitely need one for after quotes, but in some cases I included them after pieces of information that may or may not have needed them. But in any case, I need to read it as written in order to make sure that this audiobook is fully legal. Okay? So here we go. Chapter 3, Light on Both Sides. This touches upon reincarnation, by the way. In the days following the accident, my curiosity about the spirit world grew. Where had I come from? Who were the spirits that had shown me visions of the future in the moments before my birth? My memories in the hospital had included a feeling that I couldn't quite explain. It was a feeling of circular motion. A feeling of recycling myself somehow, back through life again to pick up new lessons and leave others behind. I don't want to go back, I'd protested. It's different than it's ever been before, they'd said. We need you there. But if there was here, where had I been before? My curiosity fueled an interest in reincarnation, so I began to read books on the subject, as well as others that discuss the immortality of the human soul. I wanted to know more about where the soul traveled between lives. Did it go to another dimension, a dimension that was home to spirits like Glenda? At 16, I attended a past life course. Participants were led through visualization exercises geared toward unveiling memories of prior lives. Achieving a state of relaxation was key to the approach. Group members were asked to visualize pleasant nature scenes, and then encouraged to meet with a spirit guardian to obtain advice on visiting former lives. On the first day, the instructor completed the visualization exercise by counting backwards from 10 to 1. At the end of the countdown, we were told we would begin remembering a past life. On the count of 1, I opened my spiritual eyes and found myself in the body of a tall African man, living in a tribal community on the west coast of Africa in the 17th century. I was surrounded by vivid images of trees and sand. The sounds of nearby animals and the smell of plants filled my senses. I held out my long arms and examined my large hands. Then, staring down at my body, I found I was naked. Such a different body from the one I use now, I thought, but so familiar. Oh, I just forgot, I heard myself think. I forgot about this me at this time. Here. I miss this self and the people who lived here with me. I miss this me with its story and its knowledge of joys and sorrows. I was glad to be back and was filled with a sense that what I was experiencing was not only in the past, but also somehow in the present. In this life, I knew everything was connected. We with the animals with us, they with the plants with the stars, and everything was connected to spirit. One of the memories I had during this experience was of a ceremony I took part in which the members of my tribe and I lay in a circle on the ground and held hands. We imagined drawing energy from the sun through our bodies into the earth. We were acting as conduits for the sun's energy to ensure the health of the planet. We were converting one type of energy into another through the vehicles of body and spirit. I sensed that this conversion process was an important human purpose. Other beings, plants, animals, and spirits had an energetic purpose too. And in some way, we were all linked together. In this life, I was part of a tribe of people who believed that human beings had an important and critical role to play in the energetic maintenance of the natural environment. The mythologies of many primitive peoples suggest that this belief is, in fact, common in tribal communities. The past life instructor ended the regression by guiding participants through the death process. I was in my early 40s, hunting alone with a spear. In the past, I had always hunted with a group, but now there were not many of us left. Members of our tribe had slowly disappeared over the past several seasons. Many people had left our community without warning, one by one, never to return. We didn't know why. In retrospect, I'm left to wonder whether my tribe had been affected by the slave trade. But then, all I knew were my aloneness and my depression. My wife had died in childbirth 20 years before, leaving us only one son. My son had left a few days before in search of game. I feared that he, too, might be lost to us forever. Then, suddenly, from behind a bush, an animal pounced on me and ripped at my face. I could see his claws tearing into my chest, but could feel no pain. Soon, I was flying up above, looking down. "Oh, I just forgot," I heard myself think again. But this time, I felt really silly. I should have known all along that it was only a lifetime, like so many before it. I was filled with a new clarity of understanding. How could I have forgotten? Why had I felt so much sadness about my wife's death for all of these years? It was only a lifetime, a chapter, an experience of sounds and colors. The regression ended and it was time to go home. Putting my coat on my small female body felt funny, as did walking down the stairs with my short legs. I got used to my new body again, but the memory changed me forever. I now remembered a little something about before birth and after death, a little something that would change the way I felt about life forever. I was sure now, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that there was another dimension out there that human spirits could go to. I suspected that the spirits I'd seen and communicated with as a child lived in this dimension too, or at least had access to it. Perhaps there were numerous other realms out there that could be explored if one possessed an understanding of how to do so, or could get oneself into the right state. I remembered the clarity I felt after my death as an African man and before my birth in this body. There, in the betwixt and between place, I could access knowledge of the whole picture, while here, in the physical realm, my thoughts and feelings broke the truth up into pieces that could only be examined one by one. Was this how spirit guides like Glenda obtain knowledge of people and events? Did this place allow beings to see through the pieces into the whole? I began my search for answers by reading about the experiences of people who had nearly died or been pronounced dead, and were later able to regain consciousness. The experiences that many of these people claim to have had are strikingly similar, and suggest that the death realms, as I'll call them here, may indeed have certain characteristics that are very different from those of our waking reality. The results of a poll conducted by George Gallup Jr. indicate that near-death experiences have touched the lives of approximately 5% of American adults. And that is footnote 1. Footnote 1, Raymond A. Moody Jr., MD, with Paul Perry, The Light Beyond, Bantam Paperback Edition, New York, Bantam Books, 1989, page 6. These experiences typically include a feeling that one is traveling out of the physical body in spirit form. Individuals often find themselves in a kind of spirit body, which appears to be subject to different laws of time and motion. Incidents of telepathic communication and clairvoyant vision are also commonly reported. NDE survivors frequently describe experiences such as going through a tunnel toward the light, encountering departed loved ones, meeting a spiritual being or presence, and having an opportunity to review both the positive and negative things done in life. Footnote 2, IBID, page 2. This life review, however detailed, seems to flash by in an instant. suggesting that our concepts about time do not apply in the realms visited after death. Interestingly, some NDE survivors also report being allowed to view scenes of the future while on the other side. Like my pre-birth memories, futuristic visions experienced during NDEs are sometimes presided over by spiritual beings interested in preparing individuals for their role in upcoming events. NDE survivors also commonly report being able to travel into other rooms of the hospital and beyond by means of thought. Footnote 3. IBID, page 18. Perceptions of discussions and events perceived while in an out-of-body state have frequently proven accurate. In his book, Parting Visions, Dr. Melvin Morse describes a case in which a woman traveled to her son-in-law's house in an out-of-body state while undergoing a heart transplant. When complications developed during surgery at 2:15 a.m., the woman's son-in-law awoke, quote, to see his mother-in-law standing at the foot of his bed, quote. Upon awakening, the woman reported a dream in which she'd, quote, stood at the foot of her son-in-law's bed, close quote. This is footnote 4, so that applies to the last two quotes. Melvin Morse, MD, with Paul Perry, Parting Visions, Uses and Meanings of Pre-Death, Psychic, and Spiritual Experiences. New York, Villard Books, 1994, pages 22 to 24. Patients, while supposedly in an unconscious state, can sometimes view the actions of hospital staff as well as the equipment used to save their lives. Raymond Moody, in his book The Light Beyond, tells the story of a blind woman who was able to see while in an out-of-body state. Quote, not only could she describe what the instruments used looked like, but she could even describe their colors. And then I have 4 ellipsis marks. Most of these instruments weren't even thought of over 50 years ago when she could last see. Close quote. Footnote 5. Moody, The Light Beyond, page 171. Knowledge of the thoughts and emotions of other people appears to be available to spiritual travelers through a type of telepathy. Moody describes a case in which a man accurately perceived the internal feelings of a cardiologist who was working on him. The doctor had been involved in a recent accident and was concerned that he might be sued. After recovering from his heart attack, the patient described the equipment used to save his life in detail and said, quote, Doctor, I could tell that you were worried about that accident, but there isn't any reason to be worried about things like that. Close quote. Footnote 6. IBID, page 172. After reading about near-death experiences, I was beginning to think I understood more about how and why it might be possible for spirits like Glenda to access information which seemed unavailable to me. Perhaps spirits existed in a dimension like that described by near-death survivors, one in which knowledge could be obtained in a telepathic manner and places in space and time could be accessed at will. This would certainly allow for comprehension of a less limited, more complete reality. A variety of native cultures around the world have embraced strikingly similar views of a multidimensional universe for millennia. People in many tribal cultures believe that the spirit world is divided into layers or realms, which are home to different kinds of beings. There are spirit ancestors who once lived as humans, creator gods and goddesses who were present at the dawn of time and formulated rules for human beings to live by, and a host of other deities and spirit entities living in other realms. According to the belief systems of many native peoples, human souls inhabit the spirit world before birth and return to it at death. Thus, human existence is seen as intimately tied to the spirit realm. These cultures typically believe that individuals are watched and assisted by spirits living on parallel planes, and that human cooperation and collaboration with spirits is critical to maintaining harmony in the human community and nature. Because of the intimate link between the human and spirit worlds, the passage of individuals through birth and death in native cultures, is traditionally celebrated with rituals and ceremonies. These rites are meant to ensure an individual's success in all phases of existence. In ancient Egypt and Tibet, for example, careful attention was paid to preparing people for specific trials to be faced after death. In Egypt, kings and nobles were buried with papyrus rolls that described the journey they were to take and offered helpful hints for surmounting any spiritual obstacles they might meet along the way. The Egyptian Book of the Dead, and then in parentheses, originally known as the Book of Coming Forth into the Day, close parentheses, was compiled from numerous papyrus rolls found at Egyptian burial sites. Footnote 7. Footnote 7, Temple of the Cosmos, The Ancient Egyptian Experience of the Sacred by Jeremy Nadler. Intertraditions International, Rochester, Vermont, 05767, copyright 1996 by Jeremy Nadler, from page 217. The Tibetan Book of the Dead offers the living an opportunity to prepare for the spiritual challenges that lie ahead in the death realms. The text came from the ancient, and I'm going to have to spell this for you, it's capital D-Z-O-G-C-H-E-N, I believe it's Dzogchen Tantras, and is known in the Tibetan language as Bardo Tadrol Chenmo, and that is in italics, Bardo Tadrol Chenmo. Quote, which means, and now we have a single quote, the great liberation through hearing in the Bardo, single quote, double quote, footnote 8. Footnote 8, Sogyal Rinpoche, the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying, edited by Patrick Gaffney and Andrew Harvey. San Francisco, Harper San Francisco, a division of HarperCollins Publishers, 1994, page 102. Descriptions of the death realms written by the Egyptians and Tibetans bear an uncanny resemblance to reports of many modern people who have undergone NDEs. These descriptions and reports point to the existence of a spiritual body, which separates from the physical one at death. For the ancient Egyptians, the spiritual body was known as the Ba. Jeremy Nadler, in his book Temple of the Cosmos, explains that, quote, the Ba was activated only in non-ordinary psychic states, comma, 3 ellipsis marks. Such psychic states typically characterized sleep, the after-death consciousness, and non-physical mode of consciousness attained through initiation. Close quote, footnote 9. Nadler, Temple of the Cosmos, page 200. At a later stage in the after-death journey, the deceased sheds the Ba and takes on the form of the Akh, that's A-K-H. Footnote 10. Ibid, pages 207 to 210. The Tibetan tradition, too, identifies a two-stage process for the spirit of the deceased, as it passes from what the Tibetan tradition refers to as the, quote, Bardo of Dharmata, end quote, where it inhabits a, quote, body of light, end quote. Footnote 11. Footnote 11, Rinpoche, the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying, page 276. Into the, quote, Bardo of Becoming, end quote, where it takes on a, quote, mental body, end quote. Footnote 12. Footnote 12, Ibid, page 107. Sorry about all these footnotes. I just have to do this to keep it legal, to keep it like the original text. To make sure everybody gets credit. Okay. NDE survivors often report inhabiting a spirit body that rises out of the physical one. Quote, some people describe it as a cloud of colors or an energy field. End quote. Footnote 13, Moody, The Light Beyond, page 10. Once in spirit form, individuals are frequently able to travel unobstructed through walls, and as previously noted, sometimes possess an uncanny ability to see, hear, or know things, regardless of their physical state of health. The, quote, light body, end quote, according to the Tibetan tradition, possesses powers of clairvoyance. Okay, so I probably should have used single quotes there. That wasn't from another author. Okay. In the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying, Sogyal Rinpoche describes what an individual experiences in the Bardo of Dharmata. Quote, with total clairvoyance and your senses unobstructed, you will know your past and future lives, see into others' minds, and have knowledge of all 6 realms of existence. Close quote. Footnote 14, Rinpoche, the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying, page 278. He also describes the mental body's unlimited capacity for travel. Quote, it is ceaselessly on the move. It can go wherever it wishes unobstructedly, just by thinking. So that was, quote, it is ceaselessly on the move. It can go wherever it wishes unobstructedly, just by thinking. Close quote. Footnote 15, IBID, pages 288 to 289. After separating from their bodies, NDE survivors often report traveling through a dark tunnel. Quote, they just start going through this dark space, and at the end they come into the brilliant light. 4 ellipsis marks, quote. Footnote 16, Moody, comma, the light beyond, page 11. The Egyptian and Tibetan books of the dead were meant to assist the deceased in traveling from a place or state of confusion into one of greater clarity, and, in that sense, help to foster a kind of metaphorical journey from darkness into light. Like the life review accounts provided by NDE survivors, the Egyptian and Tibetan traditions include a chance for the deceased to assess actions taken in life. Rinpoche explains, quote, in the Bardo of Becoming, we relive all the experiences of our past life, reviewing minute details long lost to memory. 4 ellipsis marks, close quote, footnote 17. Rinpoche, the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying, page 290. In the Egyptian tradition, passage through the death realms includes an opportunity for the deceased to represent himself and prove the quality of his deeds before 42 gods. Footnote 18. Nadler, Temple of the Cosmos, pages 262 to 266. Egyptian, Tibetan, and NDE accounts of the afterlife are similar in yet another way. These accounts all note the existence of and important roles played by spirit beings and or deities in the death realms. NDE reports frequently include mention of a being of light who may assist the traveler during the life review process. Footnote 19, Moody, The Light Beyond, page 13. In the Tibetan tradition, the newly dead encounter 42 peaceful and 58 wrathful deities. So that should actually be, in the Tibetan tradition, newly dead encounter, quote, 42 peaceful and 58 wrathful deities, close quote, footnote 20. Rinpoche, the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying, page 277. Like the beings encountered by NDE survivors, these deities seem to radiate light. According to both the Egyptian and Tibetan traditions, deities met in the death realms assist the traveler by symbolizing and or presenting barriers to enlightenment. In this way, the deities present the deceased with opportunities to differentiate false appearances from the true self. Egyptian, Tibetan, and modern NDE accounts all suggest that death realms are a place of learning, in which the newly departed spirit is helped through a spiritual growth process by otherworldly beings. It is as if these beings assist the soul in understanding things it has forgotten, or in looking at things that have been obscured. Primitive societies typically recognize the spirit realms as regions where knowledge can be obtained and questions can be answered. The living may visit these realms and communicate with their inhabitants via dreams, visions, and trance states. In many native cultures, shamans, priests, and initiates were trained in the art of otherworldly travel, so they might impart knowledge of these realms to the less adept. These teachers assisted in ceremonies related to birth and death and helped to ease the passage of human spirits from one realm to the next. In his book, Of Water and the Spirit, Malidoma Patrice Sommet describes the spiritual beliefs and customs embraced by the Dagara people of Burkina Faso, F-A-S-O, in Africa. Sommet describes a birth-related ritual that serves to pass knowledge about the intended purpose of a person's life from the spirit world to the world of the living. With a priest's help, an expectant mother is assisted in entering a trance state, so she can speak on behalf of the baby she carries within her body. Through the mother, the spirit of the baby imparts information on the purpose of its upcoming birth. In this way, the attending adults learn who is to be born and what they are meant to accomplish in life. It then becomes their responsibility to ensure that this information is not lost or forgotten. Footnote 21. Malidoma Patrice Sommet, Of Water and the Spirit. Ritual, Magic, and Initiation in the Life of an African Shaman. Arcana, The Penguin Group, 1995, page 20. Okay, everybody. Not all of the chapters have this many footnotes. Feel free to skip through them if you want to. You will lose some research, though, if you do that. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already. And I look forward to meeting with you, I guess, in future videos. Okay, take care.